Get your dirty paws off me, you damn dirty Tim Burton. Hello everybody, this is My Profile is Great. Today I want to talk about a movie that I had wanted to see for the very longest of times, mostly because I heard that it was a terrible movie, an awful movie, one of the blights on society, a cancer within the filmmaking community. I am of course talking about the 2001 remake of Planet of the Apes, directed by one of my favorite directors, Tim Burton. Maybe one of the reasons why I didn't want to watch this movie was because I didn't want to acknowledge the fact that Tim Burton can make such horrible pieces of shit. Okay, Alice in Wonderland is one of my probably least favorite movies. Not because it's terrible in that sense that it's like really a god-awful movie, but because there was so much potential in it. You had the cast all right, you had the director there, you had the right writers, and somehow it just completely fell apart. It was terrible, it was a mess. Like, the story was all over the place. The characters didn't have, like, any real character. The girl that they played, Alice, was completely dead. Didn't make any sense why they cast her in that role. Johnny Depp as the Mad Hatter, like, as much as I love Johnny Depp, it didn't really make a whole lot of sense. It just seemed like a total and complete misfire. And then the more and more, like, movies of the stuff that I haven't watched of Tim Burton that, you know, were kind of on my list, things like Sleepy Hollow. Once I watched Sleepy Hollow, I realized, oh wow, even way back in the day when this guy was in his prime, I would consider, he was still making really terrible movies on top of the things that I love. Like, you know, Hollow is just so, it's so, I don't even know really how to describe it. Atmosphere is great. You know, the actors there are great. You know, everything's there to make a good Sleepy Hollow movie. And then, like, by the time you get to the third act, he just so completely just throws things together and is like, oh, here's your generic happy ending. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Hope you enjoyed my really crappy movie. And that's the way that Planet of the Apes feels. It feels like it was directed by somebody who had absolutely no respect for the source material whatsoever, a la Tim Burton. You're taking this man's vision, this man's directing vision, and you're placing it into something where Tim Burton's vision should not go. Tim Burton's vision should not be applied to Planet of the Apes. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And the very moment that the movie begins, everything just feels too crazy. Like, on the ship, here's these humans and, like, they have their monkeys that they're taking care of. Everything's very bright in, like, reds and whites in that way that Tim Burton likes to portray, like, normal things, where it still, like, completely pops and gouges your eyes out. And already, you can't take the future seriously because it looks too cotton candy, I would say. So immediately that leaves a bad impression. What leaves a worse impression is the fact that they send this monkey out, like, in the space shuttle to go check out this anomaly, like, black hole, time zone ripping sort of effect in space. And you're sitting here going, wait, don't they have the technology to send out, like, just an unmanned vessel that would be able to scan it and then come back? Why put this monkey into the ship to go in there, other than for him to get into some kind of trouble and for the main character to have to go after him? This guy flies towards this anomaly that who knows what the hell is going to happen with it, to rescue this monkey that they sent out to check out this thing in the first place, and then he gets sent to, like, this other dimension or time or world or whatever, where monkeys have taken over, and in this particular case, it's not Earth. Like, they completely eliminated that twist ending to make it just sort of this crazy monkey planet. And all that he does with this premise, literally, is, oh, the monkeys act like humans and talk about humans as if they were monkeys. Isn't that crazy? Look at the awesome production design. Isn't it weird? Oh, it's so funny because the monkeys are making sexual innuendos while going ooh, 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 ah, ah, ah. And oh, look, it's Helena Bonham Carter. Isn't she just, like, quirky? I hate this damn movie. I don't even like the original 1960s Planet of the Apes. Let me make it clear, I am not a huge fan of that movie. I think that there's cool concepts in it, and like the script was pretty good, but the execution hasn't really aged all that well. It's not really a movie that you can look back on from the perspective of our modern generations and really be able to appreciate it the same way. So when you have the opportunity where you have a story that has a whole ton of potential, and you hear that somebody who's pretty talented is going to be remaking it, you can only hope for the best that, they're going to switch things up, but it's still going to have the same sort of feel that the Planet of the Apes did. And if it doesn't, it's going to be kind of like David Cronenberg's The Fly, where he takes the same premise and goes in a crazy, amazing direction with it. And instead, it wants to have it both ways, where it's both being like completely blasphemous towards the original 1960s film, and it's also trying to honor it in the same breath, and it ends up just making you more pissed off that way. There's all these lines from the original film that's given to the apes now. One of the first things you hear the apes say when you're down on the ape planet is, "Get your filthy paws off me, you damn dirty human." And at that point that's the only thing that was popping up in my mind, like over and over and over again. Just a bunch of middle fingers going, why would you do that? It's not even clever, it's not funny, it's not going to get a rise off of the audience. You know what? The only laughter you're going to get is nervous laughter from people who are like, did they really just make that ape say that classic movie line and completely destroy it? Oh God, what am I doing here? I feel like I have to escape. And even with how impressive the production of the film is, once they're rolling into like the Great Ape City, I just can't help but feel like it's your worst Comic-Con nightmares come to life as far as like the sort of butchering that somebody can do to a material. The original Planet of the Apes, as crazy, stupid looking as like the animatronic masks looked, you still kind of believed in the ape society. It felt very grounded. Felt like they had their own thing going. They weren't just like completely humanoid. Like they had their own sort of primitive culture that you can relate to, but it still feels kind of alien. Here, it's literally like the kids are wearing t-shirts with like things that say things on them. You're seeing apes going to like the ape barber shop, and then it makes no sense. It just makes my head hurt. And maybe I should just stop talking. Oh, no. The ending to this movie. This is one of the worst, stupid endings I have ever seen, where he ends up like, okay, flies away from the ape planet or whatever to go hope that he can get back to where he started from. But then on top of that being sort of illogical with the way that the whole thing works, he's basically flying into this anomaly, keeping his fingers crossed that he's not going to end up like in the middle of space stranded somewhere. It just seems incredibly stupid. So he ends up actually getting back to Earth, but because of flying through the anomaly or something, it ends up becoming like an ape Earth, and he walks up to the Lincoln Monument, and it's like Abraham Lincoln as a monkey, and like all the police are monkeys, and it's so asinine in such a horrible way of like throwing in a twist ending. It's not even a spoiler. I haven't given away the ending of the movie by talking about the tacked on horrible excuse of a twist that's at the end of it. And that's when you can tell that a movie just was not trying with their ending, when it literally almost has nothing to do with what had been set up before it. It's just a big kind of fuck you to the audience. And that's all Tim Burton intended to make, apparently. I don't know the history behind it. This could have very well have been something that the studio had butchered just as well as he had, or the screenwriters, or whatever. Central blame shouldn't be made, but I'm using Tim Burton as a figurehead for this one. He is the person that I'm placing the blame at, because I don't know who else to point the finger at in this particular case. It's a movie that actually makes you kind of angry when you're done. The more I think about it, I actually, as an admirer of film, of somebody who really loves movies, this wounds me a bit, especially after you saw Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which was a really smart, interesting way of redoing the sort of Planet of the Apes story, taking it in a different direction while still honoring the source material. The way that they implemented the classic lines, for example, from the original show is really clever in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. And it actually does get a giggle out of you because it feels like something that that character might actually say at that particular point in time. It doesn't just feel like it was crowbarred in there. They found a natural moment where that line would make sense, as opposed to when Tim Burton tries to honor a classic movie line, he just gives it to the monkeys and does it as forced as humanly possible. But I guess that's the difference between somebody who's an organic director and somebody who's more aesthetic, who makes great movies, who makes movies that I adore, that are like on my top lists. And sometimes he just makes products that look really nice but make you very, very angry. Hopefully Frankenweenie will be an exception.